Welcome to the Game Jam series where I participate in game jams, making cool games, mistakes, and learning lessons along the way. This time I'm participating in the Micro Jam 40 Magic, where I made a game in 48 hours with a cool magic casting system. I'm so proud of it. I may even make it into a full game. We'll see. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start from the beginning. I made my little game jam design document. I set up my project, messed around with a few little things, and then I went to work. After I came back from work and got some sleep, I finally started work on my game jam game. So I'm not gonna show you how I made the game like step by step. I didn't quite record everything. I was rushing through it, and my spelling's not the best when I'm rushing through things. I think it'll be boring anyways, so I'm going to just kind of go through kind of what I was thinking at the moment while making certain decisions. Following my game design document, I started working on the spell creation system, the most difficult part of, or what I believe to be the most difficult part of making this game, which took a good chunk of time. It was something that I hadn't done before, and so it's a completely new system, and I'm happy with the way it turned out. After getting the basics of the spell creation system done, I then worked on an enemy. I was going for a 2D kind of sprite system, or like a 2D and a 3D environment. So the enemy would be like a sprite, and it would swap between like the different images or whatever. It's not too hard to figure out. A lot of other games are doing this nowadays. I then also worked on like the health system for both the enemy and the player. Then I started creating the basics of the level system. All it really does is just cycles through existing levels. Some of the levels have like multiple exits, and so there's kind of also the illusion of choice there. It makes it feel much more in depth than it actually is. It just cycles through the levels, and maybe some people will figure it out. Some people might not, but I think that it turned out okay. The level design I was going for kind of a dungeon-y feel where you're going like down, down, down every time. And so not every level, but most levels, if you're not going just from point A to point P on the same like level, you're going down in some way. Then I started working on the spell creation system again and actually created some spells. I decided to look into the gas system. It's called the gas gameplay ability system in Unreal Engine. It's pretty cool. I hadn't used it before, but I had watched some videos and I decided to use it this time, and it worked out perfectly. It's very good for what I use it for. And so then I ended up creating some spells. And then I did the one thing that you probably shouldn't do when you're participating in game jams. I took a break and I played Repo with some friends.
Yeah, that can happen.
And so lost like 3 or 4 hours of hanging out with them, but it was worth it. Anyways, so I got done with that, and at some point I tried to get some assets for the enemy sprites. So the original plan of what I was going to do for this whole like 2D sprites in a 3D world sort of thing, I was going to take monster meshes, and I was going to, and it was too much. It was too much, and so I decided to just throw in the monster meshes with a basic animation from Mixamo. Then I just had the pixelation effect, the post-processing effect later, to go over top of it, and it turned out okay. I really wanted to do that whole 2D thing in a 3D world. I thought that would have been really cool, but it's just too bad. So after kind of screwing around with the monsters and stuff and thinking of what I'm supposed to do with them, I then worked on a floor and a brick material. I also worked on some level design and added a lantern that would add some, light to the player to allow them to see. And doing that, I also had the idea of making a spell that spawns a little light so that way people can see, because in my levels it started to get dark and stuff. It would be cool if they could have some kind of light or something. So I created this little guy that you'd spawn that like has a little light attached and follows the player. It wasn't too hard to implement or nothing. And it's one of the most basic spells. In fact, it's probably the first spell most players will create. It should kind of be like an introductory to creating the spells, I think. And it's probably one of the most powerful because it gives you, more sight. You can see what the fuck you're doing. At this point, it was midnight and I was exhausted. I saw that the game jam was going to end in 17 hours. I went to work, I went to sleep, I came work on the game, played Repo with some friends, and now I had 17 hours left. So I decided to, not push myself any further because I was already exhausted. I was making more mistakes than just spelling mistakes. Decided to go to sleep and wake up as early as I could. Took some knockout from InfoWarsStore.com. Not a plug, but still based. And that was the end of day 1. Then, day 2, I woke up surprisingly refreshed and ready to go. I didn't even get a chance to record most of the stuff that I was doing for this Gamejam game, which at that point was less than 12 hours away from being closed, so I hit the ground running. And again, I forgot to record a lot of it, but I'll go over what I did. To start the day, I did a bunch of small bug fixes, a few odds and ends like UI upgrades and level design fixes. I then created the iconic pixelated post-processing effect and tweaked it to look passable, I think. Then I spent some time creating more spells and their effect on the enemies. While playtesting, I saw that the jump between levels was a little annoying, so I added this really nice fade in, fade out effect that blended really well, I think. Then I added some sound effects, because at that point I didn't have any sound effects. I was like going through the stuff I needed to do. I'm like, oh shit, there's no sound at all. So I added a bunch of sound effects for the spells, the enemies, the player death sound, as well as a dungeon atmosphere sound, which I really like. Then decided to take some time that was left, and I decided to add 2 more enemy types, which was probably a mistake. But kind of thinking back, I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have added 2 more. I should have focused on some other things. But adding 2 more enemies and just having that little variety makes a big difference, I think. Then I realized only hours before the game jam ends, and I rushed to put down the last few things to make my game complete. I did a title screen main menu. Despite this, I forgot to hook up the main menu button after death that would actually take you to the main menu. So that was a mistake. So after making a few last minute changes, I then made my first build, but then error. Eventually I got it figured out, but there was like 30 minutes left. I quickly packaged my game. I smashed it into a zip file, made a quick itch page for it, uploaded it, and submitted my game with about 16 minutes left to spare. Now, I didn't end up winning or getting anywhere near the top for this game jam. Partially because of the voting style and the fact that my game is a downloadable and not playable in the window. It also wasn't as polished as some of the other games, but the lessons I learned will help me do better next time. Looking back, there was a lot that I could have done better. I could have spent more time on the itch page. I could have spent more time on the main menu and title page. The UI could have had some adjustments too. Obviously, I could have added more basic features like a pause button, sound adjustment settings. Also could have worked on some optimization. There was a few people that said that they were having a hard time playing this game, but another one that I really dropped the ball on was a taking damage sound effect or some kind of taking damage indicator. And that was like the next thing on the list. If I would have added that, probably would have changed some opinions on the game, but I just ran out of time. That's just how Game Jam games go. So the scope ended up below my original expectations, but above in so many other ways. First, I created a badass unique spell creation system with 13 spells created. I had 3 enemies and 9 levels. Now, some were duplicates, so it's more like 6, but And then I had 1 complete game that I actually turned in this 48-hour period. Follow for more Game Jam games and devlogs. Come join the Pixel Flare community to build games and participate in game jams. And don't forget to like if you like the video and subscribe if you're based. And I'll catch you later.